Okay, so let's discuss about how to compute the length of the confidence interval. So this is the level of confidence and the Z table or the coefficient table. Okay, so we have 99%, so we have the um, coefficient, so we have 2.58, 98%, so we have 2.33, 96%, so we have 2.05, 95%, we have 1.96, 92%, we have 1.75, the coefficient, 90%, we have 1.645, and the 85% is 1.44, 80% 1.28, and 70% is 1.04. So let's uh, video discussion. So we have already the margin of error formula. So we have here, so to compute the margin of error, so we have to use the given. So we have the margin of error, then we have the coefficient, the quantity of population standard deviation divided by the square root of the sample size. So we can compute the length of the confidence interval using this formula. So the interval or confidence interval, we have the L equals the upper limit or the difference between the upper limit and the lower limit. So in case if the sample mean is not given, so we will use this formula. Okay, so remember that the upper limit, we can use the formula, the sample mean or the difference between the sample mean and the margin of error for the lower limit. And for the upper limit is the sum between the sample mean and the margin of error. So if the sample mean is not given, so we cannot use the upper formula. So we can use this formula. So for shortcut or shorter method, so we can multiply the 2 and or twice of the margin of error to get the confidence interval. Example, so we have here the population of Sulu hornbill, one of the endangered bird species in the Philippines, has a standard deviation of 40. Compute for the length of the confidence interval for a 90% confidence level having a sample size of 150 and a sample mean of 65. Second, so we have the sample mean of 65. Third, we have the population standard deviation of 40. And the fourth one, so we have the 90% of the confidence level. So 90% confidence level. So confidence level. So where the coefficient equivalent in our table of the confidence level at 90%. So we have here, so at 90 we have 1 point, so this is 1.645. Okay, so that's it. So we have to write it here. Okay, then second, so we have 2. This is step 1. Step 2. Okay, so step 2, we have to compute the margin of error. Okay, so since the formula, so we have here the confidence coefficient, the population standard deviation, okay, and the square root of the sample size. Okay, so we have to substitute the given values. Okay, so first at this one. So we have the coefficient value. So we have 1.645 minus the quantity of your population standard deviation, 40. Then we have to square the square root of n, or the 150, the sample size. Okay, then perform the operation. So we have here, so square root of 1, so 1.645. Then the square root of 40 divided by the square root of 150, so we have 3.266, so 3 decimal digits. So for partial answer. Then for final answer, so we have to use multiply, or the product of 1.64 and 3.266 is 5.37. So we have to round off the final answer to 2 decimal places. Okay, that's it, the margin of error. Okay, so next is we have to compute. Okay, step 3. So this is your margin of error. Okay, step 3. So we have to compute the upper limit and the lower limit to get the length of the confidence interval. Okay, so the upper limit is the sum between the sample mean and the margin of error. Okay, so the sample mean is 65 and the margin of error is 5.37. Okay, 5.37. So the answer is 70.37. And the lower limit, the difference between the sample mean and the margin of error, so we have 65. Then minus, or the difference, 37. So we have here 59.63. Okay, so last one, so step 4. So step 4 is we have to compute the length of the confidence interval. So confidence interval length. Okay, upper limit, or the difference between the upper limit and the lower limit. So we have 70. So this is the value of the upper limit. So 70.37 minus the lower limit, 59.63. So the answer is 10.74. Okay, so 10 points. The other method to get the length of the interval is using this formula. L, or the length of the confidence interval, times or twice of the margin of error. So 2 times the margin of error is 5.37. So we have come up also the 10.74. Okay, so we have the same answer. Price of shoes that were sold. So compute for the length of the confidence interval. So what is the formula that we're going to use this statement, or this problem? So first we have to write down the given data. Okay, so the given data, we have the sample size of 160, the sample mean of 800, and we have the population standard of 75, and we have the 95% confidence interval. So confidence level. So the 95%, so we have in our table, so we have 1.96. Okay, so we have 1.96. So 1.96. So step 2, so this is step 1. Step 2, so we have to compute our margin of error. So same formula. So we have the population standard deviation, so divided by the square root of the sample size. So substitute the given data. So we have 1.96. Then we have 75, the population standard deviation. Then the square root of the sample size, 160. So the result is 1.96. So the quotient between 75 divided by the square root of 160 is, the result is 5.929. So for partial answer, so we have to use the 3 decimal digits. Then for final answer of the margin of error, so we have to multiply or the 1.96 and 5.929. Okay, so we have here 11.62. So for the final answer, we can use 2 decimal digits. Okay, 2 decimal digits. So step 3. So for step 3, so we have to, compute the upper limit. So we have to compute the upper limit and the lower limit. Okay, so upper limit, again, so we have the sum between the sample mean and the margin of error. So the sample mean, we have here 800. Okay, so we have 800 plus the margin of error of 11.62. So we have here 811.62. And for the lower limit, so this is the difference between the sample mean and the margin of error. So we have 800 minus or different 11.62. So we have 788.38. So in step 4, so we can also write the confidence interval. So we have 788.38 and 811.62. So this is your confidence interval. Okay, so you can also write this one into form of 788.38, the true mean, okay, of 811.62. So in a form like that. Okay, so your mean is greater than 788.38 and less than 811.62. Okay, so this is your confidence interval. So when this rounded off to the nearest peso, so we can use we have here 788 to 812. So 812 pesos. Okay, so the average price of the pair of shoes purchased by the customers lies between 788 to 812 pesos. So the last one, so we have to compute the length of the confidence interval. So we have here the formula. Length of the confidence interval, the upper limit minus the lower limit. Okay, so our upper limit is 811.62 minus, or the difference between 811.62 and 788.38. So we have the length, we have 23.44.